Mixed Media Gaming.
Okay, so welcome back to the Mixed Media Podcast. Currently, we're on the gaming section. I'll be talking about my first go at Steam Profit, which I talked about a while ago. Irving just finished his Arguing with Reddit segment on movies, and Ben reviewed a song as his topic segment. So, yeah, that's that. All right, so I'm not going to explain what Steam Profit is again for those who missed the episode. If you missed it, just go back to it. But I will give I'll give a brief, what I'm doing, essentially. What I'm trying to do is pick what I believe to be the top 5 most performing, the top 5 games that will be coming out within this week that are tagged as indie on Steam. How the performance is calculated is something I talked about in the past video, so you can go back to that if you want to. But yeah, top 5 releasing this week. Okay. This week starting, I came up with this list yesterday, so we're starting, so if it came out today, that would be considered a fair game, essentially. Okay, so yeah, I came with my top 5, and I noticed a lot of things that are kind of depressing. So essentially, how I did this is I had a bot that looked at the upcoming releases tab on Steam, and it essentially got every single game on the upcoming releases tab. There were about 3,800 of those, and obviously I can't sort them all, so I did some bot filtering. So first thing I did was filtered by when it's coming out, because I only needed the ones that are coming out within a week. The problem is some games, I talked about this before, some games don't use a standard date format. So really the big issue is when it says example 1/2/22, depending on what country you're from, the first number might be the month or the day. So I can't actually figure out, and this is horrible on Steam's part, the fact they don't have a standard, you just put in a date into something and it just makes a standard for you. And the fact that I don't know when that game is actually coming out. So I couldn't do anything with those ones. So I eliminated all those, which were luckily the minority. Most people did not use that. Most people just said January 1st, whatever, well, I mean, not January 1st, but example, stuff like that. And I essentially had my bot look at a bunch of common formats. So there's January 1st, people shorten it to Jan 1st. Some people don't put a comma, some people do put a comma, some people change the order of the year at the start instead of the end, whatever. I put every single possible combination of thing.
Why is this not standard?
I don't know. It's absolutely ridiculous to me. I actually baffled me when I saw it. I was like, really? It's just I don't know. I feel like this is bad for business on Steam's part. It's such a simple thing, because certain games just can't figure out when they come out. So, yeah. So I filtered that down. And then, I also don't include free-to-play games in this because the formula, essentially, that would be equal 0 points from the formula because you multiply by the price of the game at some point. So free-to-play games are not included. It's the metric we're looking for is the lower bound of the amount of money the developer made off the game within a month span is what we're looking at. So no free-to-play games because it's hard to figure out how much you make off of microtransactions versus just pure purchases. So after you do those filters, you filter by things that have standardized dates, which are most things. Filter by coming out within a week, and filter by free-to-play. You come out with 98 games, and that is a lot to look through. And I did my best to look through a lot. I could not do all the 98. I could not force myself. It was tough. Just looking at Steam page after Steam page and having to figure out, okay, does this place have a community? Does this developer have a community somewhere? It's not that easy to figure out on a first glance whether a game will succeed and stuff like that. So it's a good bit of research. I have a whole big Excel sheet, and let's see. I analyzed. Let's see how many games are here. Out of the 98. Excel is not cooperating. Oh, there it is. Okay, 38. So about a third of them. A little over a third of them. Actually, yeah, a little over a third of them. Also, notably, in the 98 games, I didn't realize that DLCs and expansions were also included in those upcoming releases. So about maybe 10 total on the list were not actually games; they were just DLCs. But I just skipped over those ones, obviously. So what I noticed most, the biggest problem I noticed most about game store pages is just the fact that they had no video trailers. They had a bunch of images. And if you've, chances are any game you played on Steam has had a video trailer, probably because you're not going to do very well if you don't have one. It's the equivalent of having launching a movie, but you only show images. You never show any clips or anything like that. You only show like the poster, like the poster of the movie. That's kind of weird. With a song, just showing like, oh, here are like 3 notes. It's like, okay, this is not useful. That was the biggest problem, and that was a thing on most games. Definitely a vast majority of the games just did not have videos, and pretty much every time I saw that, I said, "No, you're not getting people to buy your game." I am, for the most part, except one. I believe I put 1 in my portfolio. I can pick 5. So one of them I think had no video trailer, but I'll get into why I added that to the portfolio. A lot of issues with things that did have trailers is just weren't not interesting. They either just were not representative of the gameplay. They didn't show much gameplay at all. It wasn't even like a cool cinematic thing. It was like some mildly interesting thing that was going on, or it was like really slow and like it's like all someone did was they opened OBS to record and they played the game just naturally or something. And it's like and they just had that for like a minute, right? It's just them playing the game. Problem is like your game's not going to be interesting all the time, and so especially if you start out at a not interesting place, people are going to click away and look for the next game, right? Because you're not a big studio. You're in like the phase where people are going to discover you in part by just looking around, and they're shopping around for new games, and they're going quickly through these things, So you're going to click over your game, they're going to watch the first 30 seconds, and you're like, huh. It's not, if even 30 seconds. A lot of these games I would have just stopped watching after like 5 seconds. Like, all right, never mind. But I forced myself to watch the entirety of all those games trailers, and they're gonna see it like, nah, it's not the one. There are so many other games that are probably more interesting. At least their trailers are more interesting. So the ones that did have trailers, very uninteresting. So as I was going on this list, my expectations just decreased significantly for what I was going to get in the next game. And so it came to the point where I was adding things to my portfolio when they were just mildly like, okay, you did something right. I was like, okay, that trailer is actually a good trailer. I was like, all right, adding to the portfolio for now, and then, we can reassess later. But that's how I felt about a lot of them. So what's interesting is even though it's, tagged indie game, so what does indie mean? I don't know, man. I thought indie meant that you cannot have a publisher, right? I thought that was the across industries is what indie meant. But it's kind of weird in music too, right? Because there's like an indie music genre, but I mean that doesn't necessarily mean you're indie. Actually, it's the kind of music you make, I guess, which I don't fully understand, but whatever. I think it's sort of the same with games. It's just the kind of games that are associated with true indies. So smaller scale things and stuff like that. But actually on this list, for the most part, everything was truly indie. The only games out of the 38 that I looked at that had publishers, there were only 2 of them. One of them I did add to the list. Well, the publisher is, I don't know, I'll get to it. I don't actually get if there's actually a publisher or if I'm being trolled. But yeah, there's that. Some things that really dropped my standard were like poor audio quality in the trailer. Like really poor to the point I'm like, your phone would just be better at this point. Or I don't know what you're using. It sounds like you're speaking like I don't know, you put your microphone in a trash can and start speaking into it or something. I don't really know how this was possible to be this bad. And it was like not even just I think it was compression. I think it was incredibly high compression, because it wasn't even just like speaking audio, someone like reading text or something like that. It was like the audio coming from the game itself. Like, why is that low quality? You should just be recording it, and it should be like just good enough quality, because it's not like you need a microphone for this. You need a good microphone for this, or a good area to record it. It's just from your computer. So it was so across the board the audio was just bad. It just seemed to me like, I don't know. It sounded like it was compressed, but like, I don't know. It was like really badly. Yeah. Okay, so the first game that I chose is called Quest of Grail. Grail is not spelled in the way you think it is. It's spelled with 2 A's and no I, so I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. Created by a developer named Pixel Archipel. Now, this is the one I was confused about the publisher. So the developer on Steam actually says Pixel Archipel, comma, and then a name I cannot read. Presumably French, because this game is localized in French and English. Then the publisher is Pixel Archipel without the name. I was like, are these the same people? But if you go to the publisher page, there's another developer that's like Pixel Archipel, a different name. So I don't know how this works, but I think there's actually a real publisher behind this. I saw the publisher had another game that had positive reviews, not many reviews, but enough to, it was probably 20 or something like that. So as far as games go, not a lot. As far as games on the total list of games coming out this week, a lot, essentially. Because a lot of these game developers had no prior experience on Steam and stuff like that. I had pretty, satisfactory music, satisfactory trailer. I had a free demo that was out on itch.io that had good reviews. And it had casual multiplayer, like local multiplayer, which I think is a big selling point at this point, especially nowadays, with people buying games just to play with their friends and stuff like that. I didn't verify if it has like over the internet, like online multiplayer, but at least has local multiplayer. So, I think that could drive up sales. Well, not that it could. I mean, it should drive up sales if you have two people, let's say, who live together who want to play a game. Obviously, you're gonna be more likely to buy the game that has local multiplayer than different game where you might have to buy two separate copies and stuff like that, or it doesn't support multiplayer at all. So that was cool. The premise is kind of cool. It's sort of I've heard of a game like this before. I played it. Can't remember what it's called, but it was pretty successful. It was free to play. And it's sort of like a 2D platform where you race to the end sort of thing against other players. And yeah, it's a pretty simple premise, but it was showed off well in the trailer. I played the demo. It was buggy for sure, but otherwise it worked. I became invincible. That was the bug. That's what it was. The art style is pretty good, especially in these sort of like animated cutscene things, which obviously aren't in the game, but they're very pleasing to look at in the trailer. I'll say that much. That was that game. That game comes out February 5th. Once again, it's called Quest of Grail, in case you want to check it out. Going in the list, yeah, some games were simply not interesting enough. Like this game called Pachilinko, which is something that someone might play if it was like a free mobile game, but I could not imagine someone paying any amount of money to. It's not an insult to the game. It's more like what consumers are like in the game industry. They're not likely to buy something like this. It's the kind of thing you would most likely see for free, essentially, with like ads on mobile, which is kind of sad because it's not. I wouldn't say it seems like a decent game, but I know if someone made this game $1, no one would buy it. So, yeah. There were some games, like one called Yuza, where I put it as like a maybe. I wasn't really sure. In the end, I decided not to. Created by a developer called D-Novel, which actually appeared twice on this list. Somehow, this company managed to put out 2 games in a week, and it had no video trailer. But I put it on like the maybe list anyways because the developer had come up with games frequently. So on Steam, you can actually follow developers, and I don't know what that does. Never done it myself. I assume you get notified about developer news and when they release new games. But they had over 1,000 followers there, so that was good. And they made many games frequently. Clearly, like small games, quick turnover time, but that clearly resonated with people. And they made them for. The problem was they made it for under $5. I explained this before. I think I said this before. Whether this is causation or correlation or which way the causation is, I don't really know. But games that are under $15 essentially do not sell usually, like anything. Sell like 10 copies or something like that. And as I said before, in Steam Profit, you multiply to get your points. At some point, you end up multiplying by the price of the game. So a $5 game that sells 10 copies is not necessarily going to do all too well here. And despite the 1K plus followers, I was finding it hard to find like a social media presence, right? So what I did for a lot of these games was if I thought, okay, this is an interesting looking game, whatever, possibly people might buy it, I would look it up just on the internet using a search engine and see what came up. And for essentially every game, nothing came up. Like, so it was like the Steam page would come up first, and then maybe second it'd be some auto-generated page from. I found out that there are apparently a lot of bots that also do what I'm doing and scrape the internet looking for new game releases and just create pages just like they autofill a bunch of data in with like, oh, it's a description of the game, someone's coming out, developer and stuff like that. I don't really know why. I don't know what the purpose is, considering it's all on the Steam page anyways, but it exists. So you'll find that like the second result, and then maybe the third result will be something similar. Maybe if you're lucky, the fourth result will be some other auto-generated bot, and the rest are just irrelevant stuff. You won't get to the developer's website, which I found was pretty crazy. You won't find anything. You won't find like social media accounts, stuff like that. Yeah, so despite this, I looked into this. The developer's called D Novel. It's the game that I put a maybe on. It says called Yuza. I believe it's a visual novel of some sort, or like an interactive like story thing. Yeah, okay. It's not a visual novel quite. It's a mainly narrative reading adventure with interactive stuff in it. But if you look up this developer, you won't really find all too much about them. You won't find much social media and stuff like that. So I thought that was really odd. I found the Twitter. The Twitter seemed to have a good community behind it. I could tell because the tweets that were flying flying by my head, I just did not understand them. I was like, clearly this is references to previous stuff that they had going on, and it's like you just keep scrolling down. There's a bunch of references, and people are getting it, and so clearly there's a community that's there. Although maybe it's a bit hard to get into the community at this point because I simply just did not understand. But immediately I put in not much effort. I just looked at it. I was like, okay, there's people. So originally I had this game on the list actually, but eventually kicked it out for a different game. Oh yeah, this game is one called Extinction Vr. There are some games that seem to have defied the laws of my bot. So this game got in despite the release date not being known. It's not supposed to happen. This happened with 2 or 3 games where something weird happens. I think what happens is the developer decides I can't release it this week, and then they change the date. And my bot already found it, and I happened to do this maybe 2 or 3 days before I actually went through these games. So stuff can change like that. So I guess it's hindsight, I should just generate the lists right before I go and look through it. But yeah, there's one game that's changed to March. I was like, did my bot really get that wrong? I'm like, no, I think they actually just changed the date. There's another one I was picked called Donut Dodo. I had that on the list originally. It was it gave me vibes of the first game in the Mario universe, the Donkey Kong game. It gave me those kind of vibes in a way, and it looked pretty neat. The art style was certainly unique, although not my thing personally, but I would say this is the game that got closest to being on the list without being on the list actually. The problem with it is partially that the developer released 2 other games with positive reviews, which is good, but they were priced between $5 and $10, and that's kind of a no-go zone for me. And there was just another option that was better for me. Oh yeah, I think I sort of hit rock bottom in my expectations when I found a game called Emu. It's not a game. I also don't mean to roast this person. I'm sure this thing is fine, but okay, it's not a game first off.
How do you put a non-game on Steam?
There are actually many non-games on Steam. If you go to the Steam categories, there are sections of things that are just not games. And it's like, why? They're very for example, probably the most popular one is Wallpaper Engine. That's what it's called, which lets you have animated wallpapers on your desktop and stuff like that. That's on Steam. I don't know why they would do that, but it's there. And sometimes you'll see on Steam your friends playing Wallpaper Engine. It's they're not really playing it. It's just running in the background. And I think it's highly inconvenient because I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm wrong, I thought Steam only let you play one game at a time. So you have to close one in order to open another one. So I wouldn't want to have that tied to Steam. Maybe it doesn't work like that. Maybe I'm wrong. But there's at least that. So Emu is a visualizer, audio visualizer. Works like a generic audio visualizer, whatever. And I guess the idea, I think, is that it's supposed to show on your desktop. And you listen to whatever audio, it'll work. The problem is the trailer, a quote-unquote trailer, was a screen record of the desktop that was somewhat cut off, somewhat on the bottom. The taskbar was a bit missing. The left side of the screen was a bit missing too. And you couldn't see the audio visualizer. So it was just a mostly black screen, which what seemed to be some artifacting from where the audio visualizer should be. Maybe it's a good program, I couldn't tell you, but that's when my expectations really hit rock bottom. I was like, all right, well, I don't know, man. At this point, I was in a drought. Let's see. When I got to Emu, I was on a roll of 7 games. I wasn't even interested in slightly. I felt really bad. But so that was that. And the next game I decided on adding to the portfolio is called Treasure Temples. What that is, I don't remember. I'll go to the Steam page. Yeah, this thing. This is because I was at rock bottom. I looked at it, looked at the video and immediately I was like, wow, this looks just better. It just looks better than everything else. The art style looks coherent. Looks like a game that was made to make money, essentially. Looks like a lot of, there's passion put into it. It's a puzzle game. The gameplay is, it's not amazing. It's not some earth-shattering idea, but it got past the low bar essentially. So I put it on the list. Essentially that. I believe the game developer is the first game, so it's kind of sketchy, and the game has no search engine presence. Once again, you look it up, you won't find a single thing. But based on the other things, I thought it was good enough. Another thing was, let's see, some things I took off the list, such as one called Cat Gathers 10. I don't know what that means, but the whoever made it does not speak English, to be clear. So there's no English localization, which makes me wonder why the title isn't in English, because an English speaker will not be playing this game anyways. In general, games that are not in English, given that most of the game population is in the United States, and outside of that, I think it was in Chinese, I believe. So it's not like much of the world outside of China can speak Chinese. So the game didn't seem that interesting, anyways. But stuff like that with localization problems. I think there was a game that was in Polish only. I wasn't about to put them on the list. So I think these are the things that are. It's always possible that I'm wrong, and like a Polish game becomes very popular within the Polish community, right? And it proves me wrong. But I only have limited time to look at these things, and I can't analyze like the backgrounds of all these things and whether these people have followings within their communities, especially with really niche games. There are a lot of niche games that can become popular, and I just can't I'm not going to predict it because I'm not going to be looking for that niche, and I think this is niche. I'm not going to move on. So stuff like that. Maybe this game will sell really well, but I think the chances are low. So yeah. Next thing I put on my list was called Community College Hero Fun and Games, created by a company called Hosted Games. Community College Hero Fun and Games is another sort of, it's like a D-novel game almost. It's an interactive sort of story kind of thing. And this does not have a video trailer. I think it's fine because of the kind of game it is. I'm not really sure what you should have a video of. I think screenshots do it justice for what to expect. I think what drew me in was, I believe the developer is established. Yeah, so I'm looking at the developer page right now. I made a bunch of games, many of which have sold pretty consistently. They've sold decently, better than I think maybe every other game on the portfolio for past projects of the developers. So I don't know. Actually, no. There's many games. They seem to be shorter games. There's a lot of them, and they're in the cheaper range from $5 to $7. So not great, but there are really not many games that seem to be wanting to push the $15 limit currently on this list. Also it's worth noting that a lot of this stuff is seasonal, so it might be that there are just not many good games, not many, I'm not saying good, but not many highly notable games coming out now because of the fact that it's February or January, whatever. And that's essentially gamer drought, pretty much. Games tend to come out mid to end of the year, sort of thing. I'm not really sure why this is. Some of it might have to do with Video Game Awards. I don't know why it is for developers who don't expect to get there. Maybe because the sales are coming up, we can use that, all the holiday sales. But yeah, that's that. Next game on the list, and the last game on the list, is called Kiosk Bully. Which thing's a horrible name, but it's supposed to be a mixture of Monopoly and Kiosk. So, Kiosk Bully. I looked at the video of it.
That's
terrible. The trailer. It's clearly a Monopoly derivative. And they with kiosks. And what drew me into this game specifically is the developer made a game before that's a derivative of a card game, and it did well. I was like, all right, they probably figured out the formula for derivatives of tabletop games, so they got my vote there. The developer's called Notlander. They had two other games with positive reviews, actually, one of which was a derivative of a tabletop game. So, I'm not going to... There's a lot of other things I could talk about. I'm not going to because it's almost midnight. And I'm not even in my dorm right now. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. One last thing is this oversaturation problem we talk about. Look, understand this is a small sample size, but there is not much competition. That's all I'm going to say, okay? If you make anything decent, you would have made it on this list, pretty much, right? If your trailer was existent, if the gameplay looked somewhat interesting, right? There were, out of, I picked 5, and I was considering 4 other ones, right? So out of just simply bare minimum, I think someone will buy it, at least 3 people will buy it. Outside of family and friends, there were, what did I say? I said 4 and 5, 9 games out of the 30 I checked. So that's 1/3, and the bar was low, right? So if you look at the 100 games, and we assume, small sample size once again, we assume it's the same. So you might say that about 30 of these games will be somewhat interesting. And, I suggest if you're a game developer, go through the upcoming releases and see if you think you can beat them. Because I think you can. Most likely, if you're out here, being proactive, watching stuff like this, you are almost certainly ahead of the curve. Because one of the things that everyone says is, "Look, a game trailer, that's actually good," and some people did not do that. So it's kind of depressing. Really, when I realized things were getting bad is when I saw a game that used stock Unity assets, like literally just cubes and the standard capsule shape, and I was like, all right, I'm done. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, very interesting. Does that make you want to hop in on the game ASAP?
I think I don't mean to be overconfident, but it makes me more confident, is what I'm going to say. And I think at least, once again, it's February, or January, whatever, it's close to February. It's literally 30 minutes away from February. But, it's not the time where you expect a lot of good games to come out. But still, I feel like it's not all too hard to outperform games that just don't have a trailer. Like, that's really just like, all right, now you're greater than 50% at this point. You're just adding a trailer. So, add some social media presence, and I don't know, maybe we'll make top 10%.
Sounds like if people want to be successful, they should visit ariella.co and contact me for help with their social media presence and media products. Cool. It is now 11:30 p.m. Eastern time, almost the next day. This is an interesting time slot. Not sure if we'll keep it or not. I still prefer it, I'm not going to lie, for my personal schedule. This makes a lot more sense for me, but we'll see what happens. You guys just let us know if this works better for you. If you're listening in post, which most of you are, then definitely let us know what time you'd like to see us. And either way, join our Discord, because we're always talking throughout the week, and you'll get a cool conversation. And last thing, mixedmedia.locals.com. There you'll see a bunch of perks. I meant to drag in a picture of all the perks so I could flash it up real quick without having to say anything, but I forgot to do that. So other than that, I guess we'll see you guys next week at 9:30 p.m. on Monday, probably.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching and listening.
Bye.
Y'all think too small, I got big dreams. You just starting, I'm way ahead at the end scenes. Started reading and dodging all of the quick schemes. Money like your Spotify, boy, I got 10 streams. And I'm still looking for more. My people, they got a soar, I'm putting that on the Lord. Ain't accepting, ignore, just kicking down all the doors. Guarantee you, boy, if I ask for it, it's gotta be real big. I gotta make it just for my kids and for their kids' kids. That's wealth years and years.